All right, rugby fans, welcome back to MLR Kickoff. My name is Dan Power. Wait, sorry, no, that's not right. Welcome to Earful of Dirt. My name's Aaron Castro. No, that's not right. Sorry. This is the bonus point with TJ. No, sorry.
TJ.
No. Let's see, what else we got? Oh, this is welcome to the rant. I'm the big guy. How many podcasts are out there in the world of rugby? It doesn't really matter because this is Texas Rugby Monthly. I'm Dustin Zaire. That's Grant Cole right over that way. Oh, sorry, right over that way. You got Rick Collins over here. Guys, how's it going, man? Another month, another glorious episode with the three-headed hydra that is Texas Rugby Monthly.
You cut one off and 8 more will come back in its place.
Yeah. Exciting, and yes, we are very, very probably a little more demented today than we have been in the past.
To talk about today.
We do have ML. I mean, there are so many things to talk about, and super excited. We also have a really great guest on, and we're going to start off with our guest. And of course, you know, if you watch any Major League Rugby, you know him, you've heard his voice. He is a towering presence in the world of Texas rugby, and of course we had to have him on, none other than Mr. Kit McConnico. Kit, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yes, bringing Kit on, voicing the AG's game this past weekend. Are you slated for the one this coming week on Sunday?
I've got the one I'll be working on with Lincoln Rose for the AG's game.
Nice.
Excited.
Yes, that's one. Lincoln is a big fan of the podcast. He listens literally probably to the episode at least 3 times a week. He knows where to get all his information when it comes to Texas rugby.
He says that to your face. If he actually does,
no, he doesn't listen at all.
I'm kidding.
No, it's okay. He's the one that gets our viewership up to 3. Well, Kit, I think you are the first announcer that we've ever had on the podcast, so congratulations.
The bar very low for you.
Yeah, well, we wanted to set it pretty low to start off with, so we didn't have high expectations. So. So you thought you were just going to get it from Grant. You're going to get it probably from all 3 sides. So I guess tell us, how did you? My first question is, how did you ever get involved with MLR rugby? Coming from a background, because I know you were a soccer guy for a while, probably still are a soccer guy for the most part, but you got into broadcasting. How'd you get into MLR?
No, you're right. I did a lot of soccer broadcasts for MLS, USL, NASL, and I was fortunate. I was asked to do some work for T5RDG, and the first person I ever got to work with was the one and only Grant Cole.
Oh, God.
Talk about getting thrown to the fire.
Right. Thrown to the fire and then covered in something else probably too.
Honestly, it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. And I'm very fortunate to be able to call Grant a friend and a colleague, and he's been absolutely wonderful to me. Everything he's helped me and continues to help me with. I mean, I speak with Grant during the season way more often than he or his wife would like. I know he sees my number come up on his phone and he just
ignores it.
Thankfully, he generally answers. He doesn't have to, but he generally does. But no, I was fortunate to work with Grant, did some Red River Rugby Conference work, did some collegiate work, and then I started working for the Huns when they were making the transition from club rugby on to MLR, and I was fortunate that they kept me on, and I've been able to work in the MLR since its inception. I'm just honored to be a small part of the growth of rugby in this country.
It's fantastic. That's, I think that's, speaking as somebody who we've seen all 3 of us, all 4 of us have seen the growth to say that hey, you've been a part of it since the beginning speaks volumes to at least the quality of work that you do. So there, you have that. We'll have to commend you on that.
Well, Dustin, that's kind of you to say. As I said, I love the sport. I love the state, and anything I can do to help grow it, I'm thrilled to do so.
Did you know much about rugby beforehand? Like, cause you're a pretty tall guy. Like, did you play at all, or did you have any kind of inkling that it existed before? I guess before you got touched with Grant and the Huns.
I played very briefly, and I quickly realized that I was not nearly man enough to play this sport. That did not take very long. My father actually played club rugby. My brother played in high school. And I lived in Argentina for a while in my 20s. And obviously, rugby's huge in Argentina. And one of my good friends, his cousin played professionally. He played for a club called Alumni. So we would go to their games, and I got to watch the Pumas play a bunch. And when you're in a rugby culture like that, it's completely different. And that really sowed the seeds of my love for the sport in Argentina.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Rick, did you have? Sorry,
I think I decided to get into broadcasting.
I fell into broadcasting backwards. I did not. I didn't intend on being a broadcaster, but I'm fortunate and thankful every day that this is what I do. I love it. I get to be around great people. I get to do numerous sports. I get to meet great people, and rugby people are some of the best people I've met, and I'm thankful for that. But to answer your question, when I came back from Argentina, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a friend who had a bilingual sports radio show. He asked me if I'd join him. I did. And somehow that worked, and he is now a writer for ESPN, and he writes for them in English and Spanish, mainly for ESPN FC, their soccer website. And I got into the broadcasting end of things, but all because he asked me to do a bilingual sports radio show with him.
That's awesome. I did not. That's a fun fact. So at least doing a bilingual sports broadcast, was that here in Texas or was that somewhere else?
No, that was here in Austin. That was a show. It was called Football in Vivo, and we would do 30 minutes in English and 30 minutes in Spanish.
Same content or different content?
No, it was generally different content.
Man.
Oh, good. I was worried you might be saying this, saying it in English and then immediately then translating into Spanish.
Just like if you're calling a number or something. Like, press 1 for kids' fun. English.
Exactly. No, it was fun, and for the most part, we had completely different audiences. We had English speakers who would tune in for the first 30 minutes, then we'd have a completely different audience for the second 30 minutes. And the good news was the FCC. There are a lot of things in the second 30 minutes that probably shouldn't have been said because they were said in Spanish. We got away with it.
Yeah, that's most of the FCC probably doesn't speak Spanish, so that's probably why. That I'm just going to throw it out there. Just thinking out loud there. So let's talk a little bit about MLR. We're 1 week in, which is fantastic. The opening weekend was probably one of the most exciting weekends for rugby. If you watched the games, like you saw, I think what was it? The average points per game was 55.5 points per game. So no defense being played anywhere across the league, which is exciting. Talk to me about, just a little bit thinking about season 1, 2, 3, well, 2.5, because since 3 really didn't happen, and then leading up until now, and the changes that you've seen, not only like on the pitch, but in the broadcast aspect of it.
It's been absolutely monumental, and Grant can attest to this. He's seen it on both ends. He's seen it from the broadcast, and he's seen it from the play on the pitch. And as you guys know, the caliber of play has improved exponentially. The international players. I mean, you look at the Giltinis roster. I mean, look at people that are playing in San Diego. Look at some of these guys that are here. That who would have ever thought? I mean, when Bastro came in last year and in the Beast and Tendai, and you're sitting here saying these guys are going to play in the U.S., and that was just the beginning. I mean, that was the very beginning. And now in year 4, everyone has international players. But to me, the cool thing isn't just the international players, it's the local talent. And you look at the development programs, you look at what they've been able to do. Look at what they've done in Houston. Look what they've done in New England. Look at what they've done in Utah and other places, bringing these local players, these collegiate kids up. They don't have to go to Europe. They don't have to go somewhere else. I mean, I saw Cam Dodson and these guys playing here in MLR, and they're phenomenal talents, and they're going to be Eagles, these guys, someday. And to be able to see them here is just great.
Yeah.
On the broadcast end of things, it's night and day. I mean, Grant can tell you the first year we're out there under a tent, being rained on, and trying to keep our equipment dry, and it's 150 degrees in the summer and 30 degrees, and it's just you're doing everything you can, but you're out there for the love of the sport. You're out there for this opportunity to be part of something new and to be there at the beginning. And right now, I mean, the people we brought in, Reese Edwards from Europe, and just the crew that we have, Jimmy Cudahy, and the people working on the broadcast end of things, Scott Railing at L2 in Austin. I mean, these are guys who do major sports in every level, and to have them as a part of Major League Rugby broadcast speaks volumes.
Yeah, I think it's, the things that we've seen, and I chatted with Dan Power a bit about it on, the Austin Rugby podcast, and just said, we see these changes. We see, you talked about quality play, but you see the broadcast changes, and each game it's improving better and better and better and better and better. And I think that, as we start to get more eyes on it, and some of the people complain about, camera angles and things like that, which we can talk about, extensively, and is talked about extensively on social media. But it's because I think people don't realize that some of these guys who are out there doing the camera work on the field, rugby is not the first thing they've done. They've got basketball, football, like L2 Productions. Like, how many different things do they do? You go to overseas, a lot of these guys who are the camera operators pretty much are rugby guys. Like, they are doing Premiership, they are doing Super Rugby, and so they know where the ball is going to go and they know what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the big changes that I think we'll start to see, is as these camera operators start to say, oh, I know where it's going to go, and they can kind of anticipate, and we'll get better shots and better views for you as commentators. Because I know watching the match, and we know that all the commentators are in Austin, right now at L2, kind of doing socially distant commentating, which I'm going to ask you about. But it's got to be better for you once we start getting those people to know the sport a little bit better, so they can have the better shots for the commentators.
Oh, absolutely. And doing the remote model, which more and more companies, ESPN, CBS, Fox, everyone is going to for numerous reasons. It has its pluses, it has its minuses, but it's difficult if you're not on site, and you are at the mercy of the camera operators, and we've seen that. But I will give them credit; they do a great job, and very few of these people said, "I'm going to be a professional camera operator for rugby."
Yeah, right.
If they said that 2 years ago, they would be unemployed. So
Right.
they are learning the sport. They're doing a great job, and the league is doing a fantastic job. We have meetings every week. I had a meeting earlier today with Colin Hawley, who is my broadcast partner today, with Reese Edwards. We talked about the good things from the match, from the AG's Week 1 match. We talked about things that need improvement. It's those little things, and doing the things like that shows that MLR wants to improve. They are listening to the fans. They're listening to the feedback they get, and not everything is going to be fixed from week 1 to week 2, but the changes that are going to be made week in and week out are small, and most people may not notice them. But if you look at the product compared to where it was in year 1, and look at the product where it is in week 18 of this year compared to where it was last week, it'll be a huge difference.
Yeah, the biggest complaints we had, right, was the Toronto Atlanta match. We missed the first 14 minutes or so, and then New York San Diego, which looked like a disaster. And that, I don't know who that's on. Really, that's more of the camera operations, and they may have been forced into that position due to the facility that they're in, but compared to the second year, where literally there was one game where they never followed the ball with a camera. It was like stuck in position for the entire first half. I think it was in Atlanta. We were sitting there going, I've seen better Division III recorded matches. Like, this is, and now we're at the point where we're literally arguing over little, minutia in terms of the broadcast. And really, it's not the broadcasters. I'd say the broadcasters have done a really good job. This year has been, one of the things that I was reading on Reddit was just how impressed people were overseas with the product in terms of the stadiums, the announcers, the camera work in general, as well as some of the entertainment and things that were provided during the matches. So I think it was a big win in week 1, and the great part is that we were starting at almost 0, right? And now we're going to be looking at, making another step in week 2, which none of the other leagues are doing that. I mean, all the other leagues are stacked to broadcast. So only way to go is up.
Rick, I couldn't agree more. And that's what the league has done. And again, I credit the league. I mean, from the top down, but what Jimmy Cudahy has done in the broadcast and the production end of things, the professionalization, and you look at the atmosphere in the stadiums, and Aviva Stadium in Houston, Bold Stadium in Austin, places that I know well. A few years ago, nobody would have ever thought. And the fact that these teams are playing in these stadiums, they have their own facilities, that beautiful weight room, that performance center that's being built there. It's Grant's son helped equip that thing in Houston this week. But these are things, and it has to happen bit by bit. And if you're comparing it to Super Rugby, if you're comparing it to what you see in the Premiership, that's doing a disservice to Major League Rugby. Yeah. You have to understand that this is year 4, and it's going to take time. This isn't going to be a Super Rugby kind of event in year 4. But if you continue to support it, if we continue to make these strides, one day it will, and that day is not going to be too far in the distant future.
Yeah. I love what you said there, talking about like not comparing to Super Rugby, on social media, people talk about, Bold Stadium, it's so far away, they could play so much closer to home. It's like, there's, you think about it, like there are certain regulations that you have to have for a pitch. I said Bold Stadium is just as far as Dell Diamond was in Round Rock, or the multiplex, and so when you talk about that, like you can't compare it. And of course, you have people from overseas going, well, this is the kind of the same as what we have. It's not the same as what they have in Super Rugby. Why would I not travel down there to watch it? I was like, because it's a great 5,000 person facility, capacity facility that you can go watch high quality rugby with guys who played Super Rugby and guys who will, who knows, we could have Americans, Mason Peterson, who he even talked about it. He's open to going to play over in Europe and going to play in Super Rugby if he ever got the chance to. And so I think you're right there. These facilities are fantastic. Yes, I know San Diego's kind of been thrown a tough bone here this year, not being able to play at Tororo Stadium. But at the same time, look at all the other stadiums and how well people are doing and the growth. And like you said, Kit, like the growth in Austin, we saw it in that first match. Like there were people all around the stadium. I wasn't there in person, but I know people were sitting on the camera side, in the end zone, in the tents, in the main stands, at 50% capacity, which would be roughly about 2,500 people at a match.
No, you're right. And the word is out. And it's taken time, but I firmly believe this is the breakout year. This is the year that Major League Rugby puts its foot in the ground and moves forward. This is a game that Americans will fall in love with, as we all know. I mean, this has everything you want. It's the physicality of football. It's the pace of play of soccer. It has everything people want. It's quick. It's 80 minutes. This is the year. And Major League Rugby knows that. They've invested. They've done everything right. And I've said this from day one. If you can get somebody out to a rugby match in person, they'll go again. All you have to do is get them to that first match, and they're hooked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you talked about it. Major League Rugby knows it's the year. Of course, with partnerships like Geico and American Airlines and all the other partnerships that they've got lined up. I mean, those are huge, huge partnerships. Like that's not, that's not sitting there going, hey, we got Joe's Crab Shack or, from down the street. I say Joe's Crab Shack, which was a major chain, but this, what I mean? Like some Joe Schmo, this is, Tire and Battery or whatever it may be down on 3rd Street. But this is major corporations, and especially in a city like Austin where you have new, businesses like Google and Facebook and everybody moving here, as like these companies are going to start getting involved. And so once they get involved, their employees are going to get involved and they're going to be out of the stadiums.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Toyota be a sponsor for the Dallas Jackals next year.
Which one?
Toyota. The Jackals next year. They just moved their executive headquarters up to Plano, Frisco area.
Oh, okay. Well, so are the Jackals going to play next year?
I I finally got my kid in, so
There you go. Okay.
I hope they do.
Ouch, that hurt.
That
hurt.
I know. I was.
That hurt.
It only took 4 months.
We'll still continue with that one. We'll still continue with that one. So, will the Jackals play next year? I don't know. We're gonna wait and see.
So, Kit, before we get rid of you today, I've got a question for you.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
For your fourth season of doing this, you've seen almost all the players in the league, and so of all the players you've seen, who is your favorite?
That is difficult to say, and the broadcaster in me does not want to answer that question.
Doesn't matter. Sorry, you got to answer all questions on Texas Rugby.
Well,
This is not one pass or kick.
Yeah,
let's ask it a different way. Let's ask it a
Texas
different way.
Rugby Monthly.
Which
I will take the card and
MLR
go to the sin bin.
No, let's do this. Let's do this. Which MLR athlete entertains you the most? Do you think is one of the most entertaining?
Well, I will say, I mean, there are a ton of them, but somebody I've seen recently, and so he sticks out of my mind. I saw him this last weekend at Bolton Stadium. Is Mikey Teo, and Mikey is he's just something about him. He's an X factor, as you say, Grant. He's the kind of guy that when he gets the ball in his hands, you're not going anywhere. You keep your eyes on the pitch. He's in the right spot. I mean, I remember just he does the little things. He's smart, and he is the consummate Southern California guy to me. I mean, I'm there pitch side, and Mikey comes out for the pregame warm-ups at Bolton Stadium wearing a pair of Vans. Everybody else is in their cleats. Mikey's in his Vans for his pregame warm-ups. He's something else. He's a great guy. He's a great representative of MLR, and he is a phenomenal athlete. So just because I saw him a few days ago, he sticks out in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, and he's been around since even before the MLR in pro rugby.
Yep.
So, I mean, he was a very entertaining player there as well. And possibly one of the reasons I continue to watch the Breakers games is just because of Teo. So I would agree with you there.
Yeah.
Very entertaining player.
So Kit, who is of all the players, who's the hardest name to pronounce?
Man.
Oh my goodness!
Grant had a few on the on some Texas Rugby Monthly live streams a couple weeks ago when he was doing the Houston game. He was working hard.
I'm very fortunate that I work with great people, and for the South African names, I asked Dallin Stanford, the great Dallin, the legend himself, for help. I lean on Grant a lot, and Grant knows this. Every week for the game coming up, I run pronunciations with Grant. The Latin American players I'm good with because I speak Spanish. The Fijian players are difficult. Yeah, I will say that much. And my apologies because I know I'm butchering some names there. So
What about some of the
I worked on those a lot, but it's slow going.
What about some of the
one thing-
Eastern European guys? There's nobody, locally, at least you can probably find some Fijians that play on some clubs around here, but you get some of those Eastern European names.
Hatiashvili.
Again, those are ones that I lean on. Those are I call Grant and say, Grant, help me, please. And to his credit, he always does.
5 minutes, please.
That's right. One name for 5 minutes.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, and what I tell everybody, all commentators, is when you're practicing those names, pretend you're seeing the player running at you from 20 meters away, and you've got to get his name right, or else he's going to tackle you.
It's an interesting way to think about it.
If that was the case, I would not be walking.
A couple broken bones, a couple hips, and everything. So. Well, Kit, we really appreciate you coming on, man. Just kind of shooting the shit. Just tell us a little bit about everything. We really appreciate all that you do for Major League Rugby. I mean, we love listening to you doing broadcasts. It's been always a pleasure to have you, and glad to have you and Lincoln, back on the horn together here this coming weekend in Austin. We get kind of spoiled because you do get a lot of Austin matches, which is pretty great.
It absolutely is, and I'm fortunate to be able to work with Lincoln. And guys, I appreciate it. Dustin, Rick, and Grant, obviously, I thank you guys for all you do. It's a labor of love for what you do for rugby, not just in the state of Texas, but I mean, what you're doing for rugby in this country. And it really is. I mean, you are helping grow this game as much as anybody. So I thank you guys for everything. And thanks again for having me.
Man, those are kind statements that we will take a break on and say, Kit, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you on. We'll be right back after this short break. Well, welcome back, everybody. Really appreciate you continuing to listen and watch the three-headed hydra that is Texas Rugby Monthly. We, we're not like those other podcasts as we keep talking about. 30-something. Do you believe that? 30-something podcasts out there in American rugby. Who has that amount of time to listen to all those?
Who has the time to do it?
Grant raises his hand. For those of you listening, Grant just raised his hand. I've got time to listen to everything. Must be nice. So
who has time to go on to all of them?
I know, right? Exactly. Who has time to go on to all of them? Rick.
What do you think I'm listening to during the day when I'm sitting here writing policy and procedures?
What do you think Grant's doing right now while he's recording Texas Rugby Monthly? He's listening to a whole other podcast. He's watching a match and listening to a podcast. He gets enough of that, man. So, hey, guys, this is it. This is the first episode that we can talk about Major League Rugby. That's exciting for two of us. sorry, Rick. Hey, Rick. However, I do notice that you have your new kit on, as you mentioned. You got both of them. Those are slick. I will say that. I do like those kits. So because we do like those kits, we'll start with Dallas and see what's going on.
Perfect.
Actually, hold on. I want to take a step back. Did you guys know that this past month we had three separate broadcasts on Texas Rugby Monthly and Austin Rugby Supporters, but Texas Rugby Monthly. We had exclusive rights to all the Houston SaberCats and Austin Gilgronis preseason matches on Texas Rugby Monthly. Exclusive rights. Only one broadcast. We had a total. Let's see. The Houston Austin match had at max watching somewhere around 280 people around the world. We had The Beast was on there. We had Drew Mitchell was watching that match. Who else was watching? Lots of people from Australia because they were up early in the morning. And then we had lots of a couple different owners from around Major League Rugby, and someone even said that the commissioner himself might have been tuning in for a few minutes on Texas Rugby Monthly. That, my friends, is very exciting.
It's the most action we've gotten out of all of our podcasts.
We have so many followers. It's the most action. Our social media channel just absolutely exploded after that. So just want to throw that. Thank you to all of you that now listen and follow us because of a random because we decided we wanted to put out video because nobody else was.
We wanted to put out content because nobody else was willing to, and we said, why not?
Yeah, screw it. Grant, hat off. I don't have a hat on, but hats off to you, man, for broadcasting 3 matches. You had 3 matches.
2 of them back to back.
Actually, we had 4 matches. I should say we had 4 matches because we had Austin Nola Houston, Houston Austin, and Austin LA. So 4 matches. Man, that's
I didn't get Austin LA, but we did those.
Shout out to Bradley Yandel, who Yandel. Yes, I know. I have a friend named Brad Randall. So Bradley Yandel, who came and helped out on that one for Texas Rugby Monthly on the Austin
did
match.
A fantastic job.
Did a great job.
John with the camera work.
John with camera work was spot on. It was great.
Yeah,
great. Unfortunately, he got drowned out about 30% of the time by Thunderstruck and the loudest audio in the history of live sports.
Yeah, when we get to Austin, we're gonna have to talk about.
You're gonna have to get earplugs.
The in-stadium broadcast situation.
They fixed that this past weekend a little bit. So
anyway,
okay. That's not the only stadium with that issue. So it's being addressed all around as a crowd issue. You know, how do we engage? How do we make sure that how do we engage the crowd but not drown out all the socializing that goes on as a part of a rugby game?
Yeah, and the action going on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
And how do we make sure we're not drowning over the match? So Yeah, so that discussion's going on around the league. That's not just one stadium.
No. Well, I'm glad that's happening. So anyway, I just wanted to, I thought we'd stop for a second before we get into the each round table or get into the round table. But I'm really happy about that. I'm happy that people tuned into it. And again, Grant, thanks again to you, and thanks again to the amazing camera work of your lovely wife, who I can hear in the background. Which I think is funny.
She can't hear you, but
she can't hear me, but we can hear her. I
got thanked.
I had to mute it a few times a little bit ago when we were talking to kids.
Okay.
We're all right, man. That's why I've complete control over here. So, Rick, go ahead. Take us off.
Most of the action in Dallas has actually been happening through the commissioner's office and the owners group, which was making the deals with Geico, which that's a
massive
pro sports sponsorship.
Yeah.
That's not a, up and coming pro sports sponsorship to get a brand like that, along with American Airlines, which I know other teams have been getting their own, deals with different local airlines, but for American Airlines to be the travel sponsor for the entire league is huge as well. Those are huge brand names. That's going to bring attention. That's going to bring money.
Yeah,
which, that was the reason George Killebrew was brought in, was to figure out how to bring a huge influx of money, and he seems to be doing that. So I would say that's the most action Dallas has been getting. We do have good news in terms of gameplay. So the DFW area has basically lifted restrictions on playing rugby. So now the teams have put out their schedules along with, I think, the rest of Texas. I know that they have a big schedule set in place. They're going to play XO. They're going to play HDX. They're playing the Huns. They're playing the Blacks. The Quins kind of waited until the last minute to put out their schedule.
Yeah.
It's not as strong a schedule. I know that they're, leaning towards the 7 season. And I think, things are happening behind the scenes in terms of youth development and things like that. I'm not sure exactly what John Conmey would say, president of the club at this point, but they've got a spring schedule together, and they'll be playing matches. So I know there was concern for a while because they weren't showing up on anybody else's schedule.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So that concern is now gone away. They Dallas teams, the D1 teams, but there's plenty of other teams. I know Grand Prairie's in there, is in there. The HEB ULIS team is playing. Everybody's training, everybody's practicing. There will be a season. There's concern about whether fans will be allowed at some of the matches, and I think it's going to depend on the teams. But what I'm hoping is that, as was done in Austin and Houston in terms of live streaming some of the games, there will be some live stream games, at least on Facebook, for some of the, at least for the D1 teams up here in Dallas. So the Jackals are still kind of putting out some social media content. I'm not allowed to release them information about a certain somebody who will be making an appearance in the not so distant future for the Jackals.
Like as a player or did they sign you or something? Because they don't have anybody else.
It's neither a player nor a broadcaster. So it'll be interesting. Once I receive
a random person
confirmation that information can be released, I will release it.
All right.
Yes, kit is finally coming in. So I got both of my jerseys. You can see my black and teal in the background. I'm wearing my white and teal right now.
Yeah. I do like the
some
black and
people
teal
are
one. Pretty awesome.
Struggling with it, but it seems to be a team by team thing with the rugby shop in terms of who's producing the products. And I don't know if it's them getting the information in and confirming orders with the rugby shop, but I know that we have a big announcement with the rugby shop coming up here.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited for that one. We teased it last month. We teased it.
But I'm just excited that we're going to get some local rugby. Unfortunately, university is still held to the standard of each university, and so Unfortunately, SMU is just beginning training now, and they graduate in May. So I'm not sure how much rugby we're going to get in. They're still not letting us play matches. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But there are universities that will be scheduling matches, playing a shortened season. There will be no nationals for NRC for 15s. I think they're looking at just doing 7s this year. So that is what I've got for Dallas.
CRCs.
Oh, and the Dallas Reds went down and beat HTX.
Yes, they did.
So Dallas up, Houston down.
Oh man, Grant, you got anything to kind of throw in there on that one?
Hey, it's our first game ever.
First game ever. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And that was a big deal for us, is getting that under our belt, getting some tries scored. And especially in the third period, we did 3 periods of 30 minutes each, and all the coaches. No, the coaches agreed on it. We had a lot of
in the third period. We had a power play.
Well, we had a lot of players that needed to get time, right? And we're 3 deep on our back line, and Phil wanted to make sure a lot of his players got playing time, so we agreed upon 3 30-minute periods, and the referee said no problem, we can do it. So
that's awesome.
And we finally settled down in the last 30 minutes and started playing our game plan and moving it out wide and letting our speed do the work and scoring tries that way, which is what we try to do. And too little, too late on our end. Dallas, tough side as always. There's a reason that they are one of the top teams in Texas, top teams in the nation, is because they are not easy to beat, and they proved it that day. We got some. There were some tries that probably were left on the field by both teams, and we both feel that we could have gone back and got it. But this was what we consider a preseason warm-up match for both teams, and we've got 2 more games to go, 1 in Houston, 1 in Dallas, and from there, it's just a matter of we'll see what we got from there.
Yeah,
we've got the Huns this week, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's some guys on the Reds team that, are probably MLR talent capable at this moment. That's a good team. If you look at that roster up and down, that Reds team is really good.
Yeah, there are a couple guys who could do some medical jokers. The really hard part, and we're even seeing this with the Rugby HDX guys, is the really hard part of going from men's D1 to the MLR is pace and intensity.
Yeah, speed is all.
And I sat out there and watched the Cats practice yesterday for 3 hours at match pace. And
Zoom.
Yeah, I was just mind boggled, and just how fast they were going, and everybody was out there. Even the guys who were injured were out there watching and doing their part. So. It's not for the Cats, they're not sitting back on their laurels of having beat the 2-time MLR champions in the first match of the season. They're very concerned that hey, there was a lot of CWAs that weren't out there that we would normally see. So this will not be the same CWAs team that they're going to face when they go up to Seattle.
Yeah.
And now that we know that
Samu Manoa, place to play.
Yeah. Now we know that Samu Manoa is added to the team as well, and there's some other names, some big names that are going to be coming up. It's going to be a tough ask going to play them again. It won't be the same as easy, and it wasn't easy this time. So it's something that the Cats are really going to have to focus on. Kudos to them; they got the try scored. They found their pattern. They exploited the holes, the gaps, the way they needed to, and the way they wanted to. Also, their counter attack was spot on. You could see that Mateus Freire and Zach Pangelinan were both right in tune with each other on counterattacks that night. We do think we left 2 tries on the board by not having enough support running for them. And if we would have had, plenty of support runners on their breakaways, we probably would have been another 2 tries up on on the Seawoods, and that would have been a bigger surprise to everybody.
Hey, Grant, speaking of the counterattack, Jinyo had a huge hand in a couple of those. And as a former Dallas Quinn, how do you think he's looking? I was surprised he got the start, to be fair.
Yeah, well, getting the start was going to happen, so that's not an issue. I think everybody understands that DeVette is dealing with a minor injury right now, and the team hasn't really announced what that is. I don't even know what that is, but I do know that he's not. That's probably the reason why he's not out there. You don't bench your captain for any other reason, right?
Yep.
So Jinho, yeah, he stood up, did his job. I would like to see him kick a little less when he has other options, and he definitely has other options. So one of the things scrum halves don't always do at this level, at MLR level, when they step up, is consider their field enough. Like they have one or two options, but they need to know 3 or 4 options, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something Jinho's learning to do is step up and find that 3rd or 4th option before he picks up and delivers, whatever that delivery is going to look like. So that's something that, we're going to see him working on through the season, and especially at the turnaround point, because there's a couple of times if he would have just sniped the post instead of chipping ahead, we probably would have been a bit further down the field. So, but I mean, this is not an easy thing for anybody, right? You coming up from men's D1 and then getting up into the MLR, that's a pace difference. Like I said, the decision making is incredible, and so it's not an easy thing. So what he's doing is great. Cody O'Neill, golly, if you go back and watch that game, look at the number of rucks Cody O'Neill's involved in. Mm-hmm. The guy is everywhere, and that's what you want a lock to be. But this is a big, tough lock. He's making a lot of big hits. He's making some strong carries, wrapping up making sure that a couple of defenders have to wrap up on him every time he's carrying. He's doing some really hard work there. So yeah, kudos to the Jackals players who have come down and are doing their part here with the Sabercats.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got anything else kicking up there in Houston that you want to throw out there?
A lot of stuff on the high school rugby front going on here. In Houston, high school teams cycle through whether they're on the up or on the down side, and this year we're seeing some teams cycle up that haven't cycled up normally, like Straight Jesuit. They haven't cycled up in a while, but they've been on top before. So this weekend, the curtain raiser for the Cats Free Jacks game is going to be Woodlands versus Westlake, which those are two that's 2 powerhouse teams. Woodlands are 3 deep at every position in their high school team right now, and 3 deep with juniors and seniors.
If that doesn't get you excited for rugby in America, to have Westlake and Woodlands play prior, as a curtain raiser to an MLR match with teams that are running 3 deep, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then there'll be a rugby game going out on the training fields with Rugby HTX and Austin Huns at the same time. So there's a lot of rugby going on, and right before the match. So that's a big deal. There's going to be a lot of people out at the stadium, doing the things that people do for rugby. So, the things that we've got to do right to get people into the MLR stadiums are being done here in Houston. And, you see Debo Ali, who played wing for Newcastle Falcons and London Wasp, has been at our matches recently. He lives here in town. And I don't know if you've ever seen him. He's a tall guy, really speedy. He's in his 40s now, but still has a pretty good following, and he
could still lace him up.
Yeah, well, and he knows the game. So you see him sitting up in the stands with a couple of 3 people around him, and he's explaining the game to you.
Yep.
And so that kind of stuff is, I can look around the stands and see that all the rugby people are bringing their friends onesies, twosies to the matches. And so that, and the parents coming to these games, and the extra fans coming to the Rugby HTX Austin Huns games, and then staying to watch the MLR game, all of those things are happening. And that's the kind of stuff we need to do to make sure that this moves forward.
Do you have a number on how many people were at the match this past week?
We know that there were 1,800 tickets sold before the match.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
probably a little over 2,000.
Yeah, it looked like there's a little over half full.
Yeah.
You couldn't see it as well from the camera, because of where the cameras are showing and the way the lights do at night. But it's really good in the stands. Houston we're still a halfway point, but there's people all around the stadium, down in the south end goal, in the Cat's Den, where the bar is, making sure that they're having a good time down there. So there was I think we probably had around 2,500 people there. I don't know if all of those 2,500 were ticket holders, but I'd say 2,500 people total.
That works, man. That works.
Yeah. So I was very impressed with the showing. The guy we've got running, Houston SaberCats, JT Onyet, came from the minor league baseball arenas or stadiums. And this is some guy who really knows how to make sure that bodies are in seats, doing all the different things. And, there's even during the television downtime at the 20-minute marks and at halftime, there's always something going on down on the field at the stadium.
Yeah.
You may not see it on the TV, but it's happening there. So the fan experience is being attended to.
Yeah. Well, that's the point, right? Like, get it on the field. Get people into the stands that can't watch watching at home. You only get to see so much. Like, you expect that. You don't see halftime shows or halftime events for major sporting events in football or soccer or anything like that. So,
well, what I like about it is the SaberCats, the Viva Stadium host. Yeah, what they call their host is Raheel. I can't say his last name right now without looking at it, so don't ask me. But Raheel's been a fixture on ESPN Sports Radio here in Houston for years. And so he brings his own following to the games just by being the host. Drew, our media guy, is bringing in noted DJs from around town to do the music for the matches. So we had DJ Chiatti this week, and we're going to have things like that. Those guys, they bring their own following around. And so the things you need to do to reach out and touch those people that aren't necessarily fans but could be, that stuff's getting done here and there, and eventually that's going to pay off to have some full stadiums down the road.
That's awesome. Good stuff, man. All right, I'm gonna bring us home.
Bring us home, brother.
Well, I want to kind of piggyback on what you said. I was so excited to see Austin have a quote unquote sellout that we could sell out in Texas with COVID. So 50% capacity, kind of the same situation as in Houston. Like, people all around the stadium. I saw different photos being taken, and there were people on both sides of the stadium, spread out, social distance. I'm gonna go ballpark around 2,200 to 2,500 people who were there too. Like, it was loud. Like, you could hear it on television, which is different for an Austin match. We're not actually used to that, are we? So that's we listen. We know who we have been, so we understand. So I want to say, like, that for me was really exciting. The match was, all the matches were great. Unfortunately, Austin came up short. Questionable decisions whether or not to get points when you're 5 minutes in the attacking 22, or you just want to try to score a try. Like, God, we were inside the 22 for 5 minutes in the end of the first half, and we came back with nothing because we could have kicked for post about 3 times and just gotten points on the board. So questionable calls. I'll let that. I'm Monday morning quarterback, or sorry, Monday morning fly half, as we'll talk from Mr. Ginelli. So Monday morning fly half. But again, we almost came back at the end, and we almost took it 50 meters away. Mac Mason hit it just to the right. Like, from what people said, is like it had the distance couldn't really tell on the camera, but it had the distance. It was just to the right by about 2 or 3 meters. And so unfortunately, 28-30. Again, Utah is a tough team. Like, I don't put it past Utah, man. They've got some players, as Kit said earlier, like Mikey Teo again, he was leading. They were fired up. So big plays from a lot of good players on the team. I think that Mo Abdominan had just, he was just a hell of a match. Something like 20 ruck arrivals, 13 tackles. I think like one to two dominant tackles. There was one tackle he had with Cam Dotson in the first half where he just absolutely buried Van Buren. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like that's a big boy to bury, and they buried him. Zinzan, Ellen Puttock, he had 150 meters on 11 carries.
Wow.
That's a lot of carries
he had 10 broken tackles, like 10 tackle breaks, 3 offloads. Like, man, he was you go back and watch that match, he just was again, fastest feet in MLR. I think he's just quicker than a hiccup, man. So great to see Zinni on there. However, Zinni did go off, and on social media it looked like Zinni may have broken a finger. Like other Austin players, like Cam Dotson went out hurt, and again, Austin's going to deal with a lot of injuries, it looks like right now. So but we're, again, as Grant and I are talking, not the only team in the league. I think every team in the league is dealing with injuries, so it's going to be something. MLR 2021 is going to be the injury laden season, I think. Giltini's, they got a good team, but one of those guys gets hurt and they don't have anybody backing them up right now, or at least nobody to that caliber. So and then I think to go back, we talked about Junior. Like, I think that another former Dallas player who's been played fantastic for us was Connor Mooneyham. I mean, you go back and watch that match. First match, he was struggling a little bit. Second half of the match, he went absolutely bananas, and just he was fantastic. So,
well, it's hard going up against your heroes.
I know, right? So, but really,
so
really,
I'm actually
big credit to them.
One of the things I wanted to bring up was, Austin, Houston, not necessarily walkover teams in the last 3 years, but certainly not, the class of the league. And I really think this is a year where we're going to see Austin and Houston make big jumps in the standings. That's my opinion anyway. But also, I think there's going to be a lot more competitive games this year. I think there's more parity in the league than there were in the last 3 years. I think it's not even close. I think the parity is really crazy this year.
Yeah, it's going to be.
And the pandemic has really caused that and the new law variations that have been put in. So we're going to see it take
Scrum
about
law.
4. Oh, the scrum law's fine. Yeah, I don't have a problem. But I'm a forward. And one of the things that I'm impressed with is the fact that these players know that it's making the game faster, so that also makes them speed up their game.
Yeah.
When they would usually be lollygagging around, now they're moving. So they understand that that's part of it. But I think we're going to get about 4 weeks in before we see things settle down in penalty wise.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had 140 penalties in 5 games.
Yeah, that's a lot.
This last week.
That's a lot.
140.
3 yellow cards in the Austin match.
I mean,
alone.
way too many cards, and I mean, and that's just everybody, including the referees, being rusty. And the referees are having, the referees have new management this year with Jonathan Kaplan.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of different things going on, and it's going to take us about 4 weeks to get settled in before we actually start seeing teams begin to play their game plan consistently and be disciplined at the breakdown. Those things are not going to happen in the next 3 weeks.
No, not at all. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, Austin match. Thought was, I mean, it's a good match. A great production quality. The legendary Kit McConnico announcing that one. So excited to hear that one. My second thing that I had, I'd like to give a shout out and announce to a new rugby team in the greater Austin area. And if you don't know about it yet, the Round Rock Rage Rugby The Rage. I love that. It's a women's D2 rugby team. I have to remember it's Chris. What's her last name? Karsten. I knew it. Grant. Damn it. So I believe she's having it up. So super excited to have that's awesome. I'm again growth of the sport, man. The new Round Rock team up there, kind of with Orc, who kind of play in the Pflugerville Round Rock area. So I mean, it's the growth of the women's game now too. We've got UT. I've seen UT women rugby practice. Like they've got a ton of ladies out there. So that's pretty exciting. And then the last thing, Rick, you alluded to it earlier. We alluded to it last time. Got a big announcement for us in the world of Texas Rugby Monthly, and we're pretty excited. So we joked about that we don't have T-shirts a couple months ago that are for Texas Rugby Monthly T-shirts, and we don't. What we have done is the past couple weeks, dealing with all the winter storm that happened here in Texas. As you all know, it kind of plagued us in February, and we recorded late. Put a lot of different families in some pretty tough positions, right? A lot of rugby families, some here in Austin, some in Dallas. Like we know people who have had issues with flooding in houses and pipes bust and things like that. We have created we've created in partnership with the Rugby Shop and Austin Rugby Supporters. We have created a T-shirt, and actually it's a T-shirt, a sweatshirt, a hoodie, a tank top called Rugby for Texas. And if you're interested in it, we'll put the link in the bio. It is officially launched Friday, the 26th of March. And so this is really great. The great thing about it is 100% of the proceeds, 100% of the profit, sales, whatever you want to call it, are going to We Are Texas, the Just Keep Living Texas Relief Fund for Mr. Matthew McConnico, and also to help some of the rugby families in town around the state. Here in Austin, Houston, Dallas. There you go, man. So really excited that we were able to work with the Rugby Shop, worked with Kyle up there and the lads up there in Canada, and I think it's awesome for us. Those shirts are going on there. Also, kind of tied in with that, we also have the Austin Rugby Supporters, the Gilgroniac line, since we call ourselves the Gilgroniacs now. All of those shirts and hoodies will go to the same We Are Texas Relief Fund. I'm just super excited. If you want to buy a shirt, I think it's like $25. It's pretty cheap. It's a T-shirt. But again, all the proceeds are going to charity. So be excited for that. Help rugby families, help Texas families who are hurting. If you're listening around the country, which I know some of you do, buy a T-shirt, support Texas. And hey, the design's not too bad. I was pretty happy with it. Bragging because I did it myself. So. But hey, I got input from these two lads. So, but that's it. I'm pretty excited for this. It's just something that I think, again, families are struggling. For those who are, having a hard time, that we can help them out a little bit and, throw a couple things their way by wearing a T-shirt. And hey, who doesn't like rugby T-shirts? All right. Hey, come on, man.
You can never have enough.
Can never have enough.
My closet.
Yep, exactly. Well, that's all the big news that I have this week. That's the March episode, gentlemen. As always, this is always fun. Great. Thanks to Kit McConnico for coming on this week. Really enjoyed talking with Kit. Rick, you got anything?
Ooh, do we have 4? We're going to have 4 weeks of rugby to talk about next time?
Man, there's so much rugby to talk about next time.
Ooh.
Strap yourself in, kids. It's going to be a bumpy one. Grant, anything from you?
No, man, I'm good.
All right, man. We appreciate everybody listening and watching. For Rick Collins in Dallas, Grant Cole over there in H-Town, Houston, Texas. I'm Dustin Zaire in Austin saying I got no special sign off this week. Hey, thanks for joining us. We always appreciate it. Much love from Texas to all you who are watching and listen around the country and around the state. Cheers.
Cheers, man.